In today's session, I will tell you everything you need to know about Czech long-term or general Czech Republic's visas. So we'll cover the difference between short-term, long-term, and we'll talk about the different purposes of stay and their specifics. Then we touch the process, what steps you need to take to submit the application. We can touch briefly like how long it takes to get particular visa applications approved. And of course, you can meanwhile ask me any questions you'd like me to answer. I'll be happy to answer them if they are topical. If you have some other questions, I will be again, after I finish this free session, I will be doing a paid session where you can ask me anything, but only if you were a member of the channel. So let's now go through everything step by step. So the first type of Czech Republic's visa is a short-term visa, sometimes also called a Schengen visa. We don't deal much with these visas because they're very specific and we primarily move people to the Czech Republic. We don't deal with tourists. And these Schengen visas, short-term visas, are generally meant for tourism purposes, some short-term business stays, but I think in most cases it's just like an excuse that you're coming for business, but you actually want to do something else. And then potentially like visiting some like business trips. Yes, if you want to visit like an office of your company, or if you want to come for some specific conference or something, then yes, in that case, of course. But it cannot really be extended. You cannot stay here for more than 90 days or more than your visa allows you, because the maximum validity of the short-term visa is 90 days, but it can be issued with shorter validity. So you cannot overstay the validity, you cannot extend it in the Czech Republic, and you cannot really convert it into anything long-term. So if you come here under a short-term visa, you cannot apply for an employee card inside of the Czech Republic, for example. So it's kind of useless for people who want to move here for long-term. So we've done some applications for short-term visas as well, but not too many because that's a different field of this immigration field. Some countries, though, do not need visas to enter the Czech Republic for up to 90 days. And those are the safe countries like the US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. And those countries we want to have good relationship with as Czech Republic. So those citizens of these countries do not need a visa to enter the Czech Republic or generally the Schengen area. They just board the plane, land somewhere in Schengen, say in Prague or some other Schengen city, get a stamp into their passport, and that's basically it. That's when the 90 days start counting, and then when they leave, they get another stamp. That's kind of it. Now, the EU has started the EES system, the entry-exit system, which now does the same thing. They just don't give you a stamp. They just track everything electronically now. So if you are visa exempt, you can come here for 90 days with no hassle, but you definitely need to leave before your 90 days run out. If you need a short-term visa, then you need a short-term visa. Where to apply for it? That's one complicated part of it, because it very much depends on the country you're from. Because generally the long-term visas, and if you move into the Czech Republic, everything is decided by the Ministry of the Interior, and usually like even the same department, let's say. But for short-term visas, there are different rules depending on your country of origin or where you're applying. So in some countries, you apply at the Czech embassy. In some countries, you apply through VFS. In some countries, you apply through a French embassy because there is no Czech embassy in that particular country. So there are different, like even places where you apply. And then also the approval process is very different for each of the countries. And it also depends on the purpose of your stay, because in some countries, you know that you will almost 100% never get a family reunification visa, even if you're a married to Czech citizen. So you will not get the chance to visit them. In some countries, you know that a business visa is almost impossible to get. So there are like different rules at every, or basically in every country. So it's very difficult to deal with these type of visas. But let's go now. Let's see. Dorzila, hello. My employee card is approved. Filipino in Morocco. Congratulations. Congratulations. And let's go now to the long-term visa, which is the main reason you're here, I guess. So, and that's where we also have the highest or the biggest expertise, because since 2012, when we started Move to Prague, we've done thousands of applications. We have 26,000 people in our database. So it's been quite a lot, and we have some experience there. So I can talk about it in more details and hopefully share a bit of that knowledge and experience with you now. So first of all, the long-term visa generally is just a sticker in your passport. So that's no like residence card or anything like that. That's usually the long-term residence permit. Visa is just a sticker in your passport that's put into your passport by a Czech embassy. The maximum validity of the visa is 1 year. The minimum would be technically 3 months. Because if you want to stay less than 3 months, then you should apply for a short-term visa, or you can use the visa-free stay. In real life, I've seen long-term visas being approved for 2 weeks, for example, given some specific circumstances. But generally, long-term visas are meant for people from non-EU countries who want to stay in the Czech Republic for more than 90 days, but less than a year. You cannot get a visa for a longer period of time. Let's say, generally speaking, a long-term visa is the first step towards any long-term residence in the Czech Republic, because usually you get a long-term visa for a year, then before it expires, you apply for a residence permit, and then you keep extending your residence permit, long-term residence permit, until you reach permanent residency, and then with permanent residency you can stay permanently, or you can apply for citizenship after some amount of time. So in most cases, the long-term visa is the first application you submit through a Czech embassy. In some cases, though, there is no long-term visa option for that particular purpose of stay. So for example, employment purpose of stay does not have a long-term visa option. There is no long-term visa with employment purpose of stay. So if your purpose of stay in the Czech Republic is employment, you skip this first step and you apply directly for a residence permit, for example, an employee card or a blue card. So you could potentially skip the long-term visa process in some cases, but in most cases, it's the first application you submit. So let's go through the purposes of stay, because those are pretty interesting. There are not that many, so this will not be that long video, but I would like to discuss with you the different specifics of those different types of visas or different purposes of stay. So let's start with the business visa, or a freelance visa, self-employed visa, živno visa. It's all the same thing. And it basically applies in case you want to run some sort of business in the Czech Republic. You can do it as a freelancer, you can do it as a company owner, you can set up a local company and you can operate a Czech company. That does not really matter. But the thing here is that the business visa generally is the most complicated type of visa to get in the Czech Republic. Because it depends on where are you from. All your chances depend on where are you from. Americans have way higher chances of approval than Indians, for example. So that's one factor. Second factor is, what is your actual business plan? Because again, for example, English teachers from the US, that's the most common situation. So those applications are usually approved if you don't make any mistakes or don't say something stupid during the interview. On the other hand, even if you're an American and you want to open a restaurant in the Czech Republic, that might be very difficult even for you as an American. But then if you're an Indian and you want to open a restaurant in the Czech Republic and you want to get a visa based on that, that's kind of close to impossible. The main thing there, or the main reason for that, is that the ministry wants you to prove to them that you really have some serious business plan for the Czech Republic. And that usually means that you need to be able to support it by a lot of documents. So it's not enough just to say, hey, I want to do this, because that doesn't show that you've done anything already. You need to have some paperwork supporting that. In the very smallest amount of effort, you would have at least a business plan, but that would need to be a proper business plan with explaining why you chose the Czech Republic, that you've done your research, you would compare different markets, you would see the total, or you would use the total value of the market. Let's say it's 2 million or 2 billion crowns market in the Czech Republic, and there are only 2 companies on the market, whatever. It would need to be a really solid business plan, but still that would give you only very small chances of approval, because just having a business plan does not mean that you will actually do some business. So generally speaking, you should also support the business plan with some other relevant proof of you actually wanting to do business here, which means, I don't know, depends on the business plan, obviously, but you could have a rented office. You might need to have a website where you will be advertising your services in the Czech Republic. You definitely should have the pricing, the packages you will be selling, or whatever. If it's a restaurant, then what the dishes you will be cooking, how much they will cost. You should have some contracts or some local clients already, depending on the business plan, but it's the most complicated one, because you need to prove that you really have to be here to run the business, that you really want to run some business, and that you have done something to run the business already. Yeah. So that's the business visa. Very common, but also can be very complicated. On the other hand, the very easy one, I would say, nothing is easy, nothing is guaranteed in the Czech immigration. They can deny even a perfect application. There is no legal right to get a Czech visa, so there is nothing 100%. But on the scale of super complicated to easier, definitely this type of visa is easier, and that is the family type of visa, or family reunification, call it as you will. That's basically meant for family members following the main applicant. So let's say the main applicant applies for a business visa and they want to bring their family members, then the family members can apply for a family visa or family reunification visa. One important thing is that Czech Republic only sees spouses and children as a family. So no parents, no grandparents, no siblings, no aunts, no uncles, no one like that. There are very specific reasons where you could do that, but very difficult. So generally speaking, spouses and children, but for them, that's relatively straightforward. Great advantage of the family visa is that there is no waiting period until for how long the main applicant must be here so you can apply for the family reunification visa. There is on the internet, I often see that I didn't bring my spouse because we cannot apply until you reach 6 months or 15 months or whatever. That's not true, or it's partially true. It's just misunderstanding, because there are some limitations in terms of when you can bring your family members, but those only apply to long-term residence permit. So if you want to bring your spouse and or children and you want them to get a residence permit in the Czech Republic, then yes, there is a waiting time. Then it depends on the type of visa or residence permit of the main applicant for how long you have to wait. Can be from 0 to 15 months. But if you want to bring your family members along with you, so you all come to the Czech Republic at the same time, or if you want to bring them, you first want to get yourself approved and then bring them immediately, that's definitely always possible with a long-term visa with the family purpose of stay. Yeah, we've written articles about all this, and I've done videos about all that. So if you're interested in more details for some of the visas, I will definitely share a link in the description of the video, probably tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, because I've been writing it, but it's like super long. But you can always go to our website, movetoprague.com, and then go to the blog section and search for the relevant topic, or just check my videos here. I've done 700 videos almost, and many of them cover all these different types of visas. So if you want to go more into details, check it there. And of course, if you need any help with any of these visas, get in touch. We'll be happy to help you. That's what we do for a living. Now, another option, another purpose of stay is student. Student is the first category, or second actually, family reunification. You can also choose if you want to apply for the visa. There are no limitations, or if you want to wait for the residence permit. With student visa, it works in a similar way. As a student, which means that you will be studying an accredited program of a Czech university, you can choose if you want to apply for a long-term visa or a long-term residence permit. There are not really much differences in terms of what it does, what the visa does or what the residence permit does. There is a big difference in case of the family reunification, because it influences if your spouse can work and how long you need to wait, all that. So for family reunification, there is a big difference between a long-term visa and long-term residence permit. For students, not really. You basically need exactly the same set of documents. The ministry has the same amount of time to approve those. Basically, like the same thing. So we generally recommend people going for the long-term residence permit directly, skip the visa for the student purpose of stay. But in some cases, it might make sense to apply for the visa, because it, for example, is kind of more straightforward and faster to get approved, and especially the process after approval is a lot easier for the visa, because you don't have to get the residence card, so you don't have to go to the ministry twice for fingerprinting and photos and then pick up the card, all that. So in some cases, it makes more sense to apply for the student visa, but in most cases, I would say go for the student residence permit directly and skip the visa. But all these student visa options or residence permit options only apply to students of accredited programs. So if it's a program which is not accredited, then you cannot apply for a student visa, but you can potentially apply for the other visa. So let's discuss the other visa, because that's a very interesting category. Basically, you can try applying for the other visa if you don't fall under any other category. So you're not an employee, you are not a self-employed person, you are not a student, you don't come here under family reunification, you don't have anyone living here from your family, but you still want to come here. So the other option or other visa might be your option. But that also has some specifics, because first, it changes constantly, and second, not everything qualifies for a Czech visa anyway. So in the past, we, for example, used the other purpose of stay for retired people. If you had enough money or you had some passive income or social security income, you could use this type of visa and just get kind of a retirement type of visa, but that does not work anymore, because the ministry started denying these applications, saying that if you just want to be here to, I don't know, explore the beauties of the Czech Republic, you can do it under a short-term visa or the visa-free stay. You don't have to necessarily need to get a long-term visa. So basically you have no reason to be here for that long. So we don't do that anymore. But what we usually do, or what we usually use the other purpose of stay for, is students of non-accredited programs. So if you don't study an accredited program, which means that you don't qualify for the student visa, you can try the other purpose of stay, and that usually works. The other purpose is also used for one of the versions of the digital nomad visa, and potentially what? Maybe like an internship, you could use that as well. And yeah, sorry, one more thing is unmarried couples, where both of you are non-EU citizens. So potentially you could use that as well, but that's also very complicated. Because you need to prove your relationship, that you had the relationship before the main applicant moved here, and there is a lot of paperwork involved with like 50-50 chances, but then it also has some disadvantages compared to the family reunification visa, because that for example, family reunification residence permit allows the spouse to work, but if you get the other purpose of stay, you will not be able to work ever, basically. So if you can get married, rather get married and apply for the standard family reunification. It will be easier than trying to get the trying to get the other purpose of stay and not being able to work at all anyway. Then the last category I want to talk about is the digital nomad visa, or the digital, it's better to say digital nomad program, because there is no digital nomad visa category. The digital nomad, or if you're a digital nomad, you apply for one of two visas. You either apply for a business visa, which we talked about in the beginning, if you're a freelance digital nomad, or you apply for the other visa if you're an employed digital nomad. There is no specific like visa category just for digital nomads. You just, as a digital nomad, you get a special registration from the Czech Ministry of Industry and Trade saying that you meet the definition of a Czech digital nomad, and then based on that, you apply either for a business visa or for the other visa. So, and then there are some other visa options potentially as well, like the cultural visa or sports visa or medical visa, but those are not really something you see or you could easily get as probably someone who's watching me. If you're a professional sportsman, you want to get a visa based on that, you probably have it done through your club. We've done like 2 maybe of those. The same for cultural. We've done maybe 3 or 4 of cultural visas in the 12 years or 13 years we've been in business. So those are not really very common. And second thing, usually it's taken care of by the inviting party, let's say. So if you're a sportsman, usually clubs have their lawyers who take care of that, because it's if you're a professional football player and someone bought you, then they definitely want you here as soon as possible, because it costs them like tens of millions of euros, the whole process like of you signing you and everything. So they have their own ways of doing this. And the same for cultural visa, because that's often used for like film crews, and they also usually have someone taking care of them from the receiving side of the Czech Republic. So it's not very common types of visas. I will now check your comments, guys, if there are any questions related to this topic, and if yes, I'll answer them. If not, I will tell you more about how to apply for a long-term visa, where, how long it takes, how the process works, all that. So let's see if we have some relevant comments. Where are you from? Basically, and currently residing. I am from the Czech Republic, and we help people move to the Czech Republic and stay here forever. I waited 6 months before I got approved. Yeah, that happens, but congratulations. Anyway, you haven't been here for a long time. I haven't seen you here for a bit. I'm still waiting for my first appointment for 2 months and nothing. That happens as well. Submitted my file on 20th August in Czech Embassy New Delhi, but they didn't inform me yet. What should I do? Purpose of study. Well, I've done another video. If you go to the channel and you search for 4 steps you can take if your application takes forever to get approved. So 4 steps. Search on my channel. That will show you the options you have when you've been waiting too long for your application to get approved. Language courses go under other, that's correct. But it depends on the language course, because if you go, for example, for the preparation course for a university, which is organized by a university, which basically means that you study Czech language and you also get yourself prepared for entrance exams, then it can fall under the student purpose. But if you just come for a Czech language classes for some private school, then usually that falls under the other. How to get a visa for Saudi, like for Saudi citizen or for Saudi Arabia? If it's for Saudi Arabia, I have no idea, because we don't work in that field. If as a Saudi citizen you want to get to the Czech Republic, we can help with that, but that would be a different topic. When we lost an employee car, we get a bridging visa, the police, thanks in advance. Unfortunately, this is not the live stream to answer this. As a Saudi, yeah, so as a Saudi, all these options apply to you, but then there are some specifics to Saudi Arabia where like the quotas at the embassy and how many applications do they accept every month. So you need to check this before you decide which path you take. So let's go now through the process of how it all works. Generally speaking, let's first start with where you have to apply or where you can apply. Generally, the rule is that you can only apply in the country of origin or in the country where you have been residing for more than 2 years. So if you're from Saudi Arabia, you can only apply for any type of Czech visa only in Saudi Arabia. Or if you've been residing somewhere else for more than 2 years, let's say you moved to Germany and you've been there for more than 2 years, then you could potentially apply for a Czech visa in Germany. So in most cases, it works this way, that you can only apply in the country of origin or in the country where you have been residing for more than 2 years. I repeat, more than 2 years, because sometimes I say this and then people ask me, okay, I've been in Romania for 6 months, can I apply? 6 months is less than 2 years, so you cannot apply. Only if you've been in the country for more than 2 years. But some countries have the exception that they can apply through any Czech embassy in the world as long as the embassy accepts visa application. So that's, again, the similar list as what I explained before for the countries that have the visa-free stay, that they don't need a visa to enter the Czech Republic. So basically the same list is for the countries where whose citizen can apply anywhere in the world. So if you're an American, for example, or Canadian, Australian, Mexican, Brazilian, you don't have to only apply in the country of origin. You can apply through any Czech embassy in the world as long as they accept visa application. So as an American citizen, you can apply in the US if you want to. But if you already came to the Czech Republic using the Schengen 90 days visa-free stay, you can go to Germany and apply there, or you can fly to London in the UK and apply for your visa there, or you could potentially apply in Turkey or Vietnam or wherever you want to. But the first application must always go through an embassy. You cannot come to the Czech Republic and submit your application in the Czech Republic. That's not an option for a long-term visa. That might be option for some other types of residence permits generally, but for a visa, it always must go through an embassy. Now, Nick Torres, do I have to apply for Živno from the United States, or I can do it while in Europe? If yes, how many days until your passport in the United States? Okay, yeah, so I've just answered this. You can, as an American, you can apply in Europe. We usually send our clients to Dresden in Germany because that's the most convenient one, or then to London because that's the second most convenient one and it's outside of Schengen, which is also helpful sometimes. Just keep in mind that you submitted the visa application. The fact that you submitted your visa application does not change anything on your 90 days stay. So if your visa is not approved within those 90 days, you have to leave and wait for the approval somewhere outside of the Schengen space. You cannot just leave for a day and come back. The 90 days do not reset, so you would need to spend the whole waiting time outside. And then the chances that you get your Živno visa approved within the 90 days are very low. Depends on how well the application is prepared, when you apply, what is your business plan, let's say, but don't count with that. More count with you not making it in time, so you will have to leave and stay somewhere for a bit. Now, how the process of getting a Czech Republic's long-term visa works. So it will be maybe for mere existence, Saudi viewer, and then also maybe Nick for you as well. But you know that you want the Živno visa, so that's fine. But for someone who's just thinking about moving to the Czech Republic and you are choosing the different visa paths, definitely one of the first steps would be choosing the correct visa type for you. And the correct visa type primarily depends on where you see yourself in 5 years, let's say, as they ask in interviews for a job. Because if you know that you only want to come for a year and then you will be leaving anyway and you just want to experience the Czech Republic, then you can take a different route than if you know that you want to stay here for the next 5 years or potentially forever, that you never want to leave if you don't have to. It also is different if you're moving alone or if you're moving with your partner or spouse, or if you're moving with the whole family, because as a family, you probably don't really want to take the risk of having your visa denied, like moving your whole life here. For example, under the 90 days, you just come to Europe and plan on getting the visa approved, and then you get it denied and you're like stuck in between countries, like illegally, whatever. So as a family, you think about the visas differently and you should choose a different, potentially safer option than if you're just coming here for fun for a year, or you're alone, so you don't have a problem to travel, like catch a flight tomorrow and travel to Albania if you need to stay a bit for outside, outside of the Schengen space. So definitely like the long-term goal, and then based on that, choosing the correct visa type. Once you know what you want to do and which way you want to go, you need to collect the required documents. And then the required documents are different for different types of visas. So there are some documents that are always the same. You always must have accommodation in the Czech Republic arranged. You must have photos. There is some application form. But then depending on the purpose of your stay, some of the documents might vary. Depends also on where you lived. So how many criminal checks you will need and from what countries. So collecting the documents also takes time, so keep that in mind. Maybe that should be also one of the first things to get a correct estimation of how long it will take. If you contact someone, some advisor or a lawyer, and they tell you, okay, you will be approved in a month, don't worry about that, I would be very careful because that's usually not the case. Just the preparation phase, we usually count with a month to 2 months, depending on your nationality. In some cases, you can have everything prepared in 2 weeks for some simple situations, but for others, it can be like 2 or 3 months even, because if you lived in 2 different countries, you need criminal checks from all or like both these countries, and in some countries it might be very difficult to get the criminal check if you no longer live there, and then you need to find accommodation here. So there are different factors, but usually 1 to 2 months it's what to count with for the preparation. Then another kind of complication potentially can be getting an appointment at the Czech embassy to submit your application, because as I explained before, you need to submit your application through a Czech embassy, and in many cases only in the country of your origin. And if I go back to India, for example, then getting an appointment in India for any type of visa is very, very, very difficult. And very, very, very difficult, what I mean by that is that you might wait for months, sometimes even years before you can get an appointment. So then the question is if to even go through the process, if you know that you will not be able to apply for the next 8 months or something, or if yes, fine, but you need to count with that. For some other nationalities and some other visas, you can get an appointment within 2 weeks, potentially, depending on the embassy. Dresden, for example, books appointments 2 to 4 weeks in advance. London can be similar, depends on the type of purpose of your stay, depends on the season. Now, for example, Dresden stopped accepting applications for employee cards, so you now cannot get an appointment even in Dresden, where they usually have a lot of appointments. So it kind of depends, but let's say a month, let's say, on average, would be getting an appointment. So it's already like 1 to 2 months of preparation and then 1 month of getting an appointment. And then the approval time, I've done another video, which is one of the most popular videos of mine, which is called Czech Republic Lies About Approval Times or something like that. It's old, but still valid. Because if you go to the official websites of the Czech Ministry of the Interior or embassies or whatever, you see the official timelines which are given by the law and which like the ministry should kind of respect. The thing is, they don't. So if you see, for example, we've seen it here in the comments as well, that for student visa, the approval time is 60 days. That does not mean at all that you will get your application approved within 60 days. You can, and maybe 70% of people will. Maybe some of you will even get it sooner than that, like in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 2 months, whatever. But the remaining 30% of people can wait 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, 7 months. We've heard it here as well that someone got their visa approved after 7 months or 9 months or whatever that was. And that's normal. That's not like something unusual, let's say, which will not happen to you. It very, very realistically might. Because I don't know the statistics, but from the amount of people we work with, I would say 60 to 70% of people, maybe 60% of people get approved in time within the legal deadlines given by the law, and the remaining 40% get approved way after that. So you need to count with that as well. If the ministry says 60 days, count with 90 just to be on the same side. If the ministry says 90 to 120 days, as for the Živno visa, for example, then count with at least 120, potentially longer. So if that happens sooner, great for you, but don't take it as like something you should believe. If they say 60 days, doesn't mean it will be 60 days. So then you submit the application, you wait for unknown amount of time, which we can only guesstimate, and then hopefully you get approved. So in most cases, you need to go back to the same embassy where you applied for the visa. So if you applied in New Delhi, you have to go back to the New Delhi. If you applied in Dresden, you have to go back to Dresden. If you applied in Chicago, you need to go back to Chicago. You cannot apply in Chicago and then pick up your visa in Dresden, or apply in Dresden and pick up your visa in New Delhi. That's not possible. You always need to collect the visa, from the same embassy where you applied for it. And what you usually need for that is a residence permit, is a health insurance covering the full validity of your visa. So if you applied for a student visa for 1 year, you get it approved, you will need to go, or you will need to get health insurance before you go get your visa. We can help with the insurance. We do it for all our clients. We work with all the insurance companies on the market, so we have the best prices from them as well. So happy to do it through us. But in general, you always need to get health insurance before you go collect your visa. And then, depending on what visa you applied for, there might be some additional steps required from your side. For basically everyone who comes to the Czech Republic using the long-term visa, you should go to the foreign police within first 3 days to get registered. Only if you, for example, you're a student and you stay in a dormitory of the university, then you don't have to do it. You don't have to do the foreign police registration because the school or the dormitory will register you. But if you come here under family reunification, if you come here under business visa, if you come here under student visa, but you live with a friend or you live in a private apartment, not in dormitories, you should go to the foreign police and get yourself registered. I've done a longer video about this topic like 2 weeks ago. So if you're interested in more details for the foreign police registration, check out the video as well. And then usually you're good. For the business visa, for the Živno visa, there are more steps you need to take after you get approved, because you need to activate the trade license, get registered with Social Security, healthcare, income tax office. So that's a bit different, but generally get a health insurance, collect the visa from the embassy, get registered with the foreign police, and then you're kind of good depending on the type of visa you have. And as mentioned in the very beginning, the maximum validity of the long-term visa is 1 year. So if you got it for a full year, you cannot extend it. You can only switch from a long-term visa to a long-term residence permit, generally with the same purpose of stay. So if you get a long-term visa with the business purpose of stay, you can only get a long-term residence permit with the business purpose of stay. But there are, of course, some exceptions. You can switch to an employee card anytime. You can switch to a student residence permit anytime. So there are some exceptions, but generally, or definitely you have to switch from a visa to a residence permit. Then the purpose kind of depends on what you want to do here. And that's it. I thought this would be like, I have way more prepared, but it's already been 40 minutes and it's almost 11 o'clock here. So I kind of need to go to sleep, and I think 40 minutes is anyway a bit long. So let's see if we have some other questions related to this topic, because if not, I will still go to the joiners area and I will do live Q&As, ask me anything type of thing right now when I finish this live stream, but it's only for paying members of the channel, $8 a month. So you could ask me anything there, but I'll answer questions related to this topic here as well. I am unemployed engineer, graduate from India, want to work in Europe. How? I tried applying based on my engineer domain criteria. Yeah, from India, that would be very difficult. The only option I can recommend is a blue card. So if you qualify for the blue card, if you don't know what blue card is, check my channel. I've done a lot of videos about that, but that would be the only option if you're from India, in my opinion. Dorzila, what happened to me 6 months? Yes, that's exactly what I was talking about. But happy you got it approved at the end. And then happy bro, I want to move abroad. So I was just talking about that for the 2 minutes here. And Rodriguez, hi sir, asking what we'll do now. I'm here in Portugal and my Schengen visa was expired already 4 days ago. My boss said I stay here for 15 days. What will happen to me after? Honestly, I don't know, because the rules might be a bit different in Portugal than they are in the Czech Republic, and also depends on what your boss will be doing. But generally, if you're from a country that needs a visa, short-term visa to visit, and you overstay, then it could be potentially a big trouble, because you might get a hard time getting any future visas, because you've already broken the law once. So why they should approve you again? So guys, thank you very much for being here. It was a good amount of people watching. It was constantly about 10, which is good for me. And if you have any other questions that are not related to this topic, join the channel, and I will be starting another live stream right now within a minute in the joiners section, and you can ask me anything there. And I will see you again. Thursday, Monday, Thursday, Monday, until the end of the world. Good night, guys. Bye-bye.